clearly from a vantage point in the United States of America, you can see an awful lot of things. But with your advisory board and other networks, you're taking a global, not just a transnational, but a global view. Just thinking about total rewards then and the management of total rewards and the professional advice that total rewards professionals provide. What are the things that we might encourage them to do, thinking about the way in which things are evolving? As I say, on the one hand, clearly within that wonderful large place that is the USA, but also thinking about Europe, Asia, and other parts of our world.
Well, I think well, I one of the challenges we hear from our members is, and this is mostly within the United States, but it's also globally, is how to make your reward systems consistent throughout the world if you have a multinational organization. I know one of our members, who she teaches at North Carolina State now, but she was in HR. She was an HR professional, and the company she worked for had a strong operation in the UK, and they sent a couple of U.S. residents over to the UK, to the UK to work, and ran a successful office. But one time, one of the employees became, had a child, and she said, well, in the UK, and I could be wrong on this, so don't hold me to it, but she said in the UK, you have 1 year parental leave after you have a baby. And I don't know if but that's much more than you get in the United States, where it's not mandated at all nationally. It's up to the states. And so anyway, so then this person who was in HR TR was telling me, well, how do you do it if they find out, if she gets a year, which you could argue that's very justified, it's going to get back to the United States, and what happens to our parental leave policy. So it's a matter of trying to make things consistent when, especially in the United States, and we have a unique situation, I think, with we're 50 states, and a lot of, and much of the labor compensation related uh, factors, aspects, are determined state by state. I know, for example, the federal minimum wage is, I think it's $7, still $7.25 an hour. Don't hold me to that. That's very low. Most states are like at $12 or $15 now. So you have the whole, the situation of being consistent with people. And I think it also, one of the challenges, a couple of things we've been addressing is, in the United States, I'm not as familiar with international, but we're getting such a multi-generational workforce. I mean, people are people are working, people are living longer, they're working longer, and if you have someone who's nearing retirement, traditional retirement age in the U.S. is 65, and if they're nearing retirement, their considerations, their needs in a compensation, in a total reward program, are much different than somebody entering the workforce. I know one of the innovative things that we've run a few articles about, and again, the U.S. is different than other countries. Lots of times we have very few defined benefit pension plans anymore. A lot of it's 401k plans, and now to get somebody signed up and participating in 401k plans, a lot of companies are, with their matching contributions, they're with new programs, they're agreeing to put some of their matching funds back toward the person's student loan debt. So it's the idea, if I'm at the tail end, hey, you want those matching funds to go, straight to my 401k plan, so I'm gonna be tapping into it pretty soon. But like a younger person, but that's one example. Things like you know, childcare benefits have expanded in a lot of places also to elder care. You have what we call the sandwich generation. You're taking care of your kids, but you have your elderly folks to take care of too. I mean, it's just trying to meet those various needs and realizing that different people have different needs, and especially sometimes that aligns to the stages of their life. Sometimes it doesn't, but just how can you make sure you're helping people in terms of the different areas of their life while treating everybody equitably. I I wish I knew if there was one formula, I'd be writing the book, but there isn't. But it's always a challenge.
It certainly is. And again, this is why there's an awful lot of scope for compensation, total rewards professionals to make a difference, because the people they're working with, the employers, if they're consultants, then with their clients, they really are desperate to get that kind of guidance to help them weigh up the options. Obviously, at the end of the day, the line managers, the employers, the people acting in the line on behalf of employees, they've got to make the decisions and they've got to explain it. So communicating it. And again, this is where there's great scope for the professionals who've specialized in this area to add tremendous value and tap into the resources that people like World at Work, and also in the UK, for example, the CIPD, are making available. But you're right, you raise this real dilemma around consistency on the one hand, and then being able to respond to difference on the other. And putting that principle, as you say, of equity, fairness, what's just to the forefront as the basis on which people can weigh things up. On the one hand, you have countries where regulation is stronger. If we think about the European Union as a collection of states, compared with, say, the United States of America, in the EU, there's a heck of a lot of regulation. There's almost micromanagement to a certain degree.
Yeah.
The UK stands somewhere between the two. It's often been the case. Are we, as it were, the social welfare mainland Europeans, or are we more liberal United States? Well, somewhere in between. And as you rightly say, it's a case of trying to weigh those things up. Because if you've got to justify, we come back almost to the whole principles of corporate governance here, which in the original Cadbury report back in 1992 was laid down for corporate governance, but I think it applies more widely. You either comply or you explain why it's not appropriate. You're locating things into context. So great deal of food for thought you've kindly provided there. Um, Still thinking out to the future, clearly we live in this high-tech age. Are there things now that we think about big data, large language models, the application of AI? Are you coming across from some of the material that you're engaged in scrutinizing any particular thoughts that you'd share for us for the people viewing and listening today, taking account of where we're going technologically in the context then of compensation and total rewards management?
Well, I think a lot of what we've seen in about was it a year ago? It's about a year ago we dedicated an issue to AI and total rewards, and and a year ago is a long time ago in the world of AI, and it was basically most of the papers in there were by consultants because it hadn't been around long enough for academic research. But I thought it was a good issue, and basically it was various themes on don't be afraid of AI. This is going to be a tool. Now we're talking more about how we're going to use the tool and what functions of total rewards lend themselves to AI and which don't. To me, and boy, again, I'm not a professional in this, so don't hold me to. To me, it would seem as like a lot of the compensation tables and formulas. AI can work on those, or if you want to come up with if you want to come up with a total rewards plan, AI could give you a lot of avenues to proceed. How do I develop an employee well-being, physical well-being program? They could have a lot. I think AI could provide you with a lot of tools there, but I think it's going to be up, and I hope it's going to still be up to the TR professional. Well, how's this going to work for my organization, for our employees? It's you know, you know, a walking club is a great thing, and I've worked places where you walk over the noon hour, but in the desert heat in Arizona, in the United States here, you have to have an alternative for your for in the summer for your noontime walking group, or you're going to be picking people up off the blazing cement and getting them into the emergency rooms. I mean, but that's an oversimplification. But I think that's the kind of thing you can I think you can get a good menu of program offerings in that case, and really a lot of information. But what applies to me, and AI can help with that. But again, maybe this is the old Luddite in me. I hope that it's still a human decision, because I don't think there's a lot of information that falls into all our decisions, and AI can help with it. But I still think when it's time to make that final decision, the human element needs to be there. Yeah, and maybe I'm skeptical. I don't think AI provides all of that.
Well, you're absolutely right, Jim. I mean, clearly we have the issue of hallucination, always the reminder that the providers of the LLMs make that this AI can make mistakes. But it is more than that, as you rightly say. It's the human element. If we go back to the notion of the printing press, look how that opened up possibilities to communicate for human beings. But that's the point. You still needed the human beings to produce the text, to produce the communications. So it's facilitated using technology. I think that we don't want to step behind in terms of being able to use this. But let's remember, as you rightly say, that it's something of an enabler. It's not to replace the human. It's to,
Yeah.
I mean, the term is often used now, this idea of a co-pilot. It's
Oh yeah.
working
Mhm.
alongside.
Enabler is a very good term, Stephen. It enables you to you know spend more time on things. If you're a TR professional, spend more time on using your experience and knowledge and really getting to the heart of the situation, and less time trying to figure out the math of a compensation plan.
Absolutely right. I think that says it all. Jim, as we start to draw things together towards the end of our conversation, just the last couple of things. You've already outlined quite a lot of pointers, but bringing things together, if you're advising then people who aspire to be TR professionals looking to the future, what are a few things, a few tips and handy hints from all your experience and knowledge you might want to share with them?
Well, like, I think a lot of the TR professionals I work with have a strong background in business, and a lot of the I know most of the members of our academic consult council are in strong universities, have strong colleges of business, and HR is one part. But I just think you want to get that kind of background, because one of the things that, and I don't know if this was the case in the UK, but several years ago, the one of the buzz phrases is, we want a seat at the table. We want a HR want or TR want a seat at the corporate bigwig, the C-suite conference room. If you want a seat at the table, you've got to understand a lot more than just AI. You got to how it plays into the big picture. You have to understand with with the advent of AI and other technology, why the human element is still important and how you can maximize it. Because I think one of the challenges is going to be to with with business leaders who maybe don't understand the importance of TR, HR, and the human worker. Hey, it's the knee jerk reaction is, hey, let's replace people with AI. instead of saying, hey, let's use AI to make our people more effective. And, how do we want to direct through rewards and training and, how do we want to direct our current workforce to maximize the benefits of AI, and what kind of employees do we need to be skill sets do we need to be looking for in the future. So I think that's one of the I think one of those things is, understand the big picture as much as possible, and, where we're heading. Don't be I wouldn't I would also try encourage people not to be industry specific, develop skill sets. I came from an industry, traditional print newspapers in the United States really really taken it on the chops business wise. A lot fewer papers and a lot fewer journalists being employed in newsrooms traditionally. But there's a lot of other things out there, and the people who've been successful. I have former colleagues who are writing national and international blogs right now, and doing quite well. So I mean, understand that there's I think there's always going to be a need for TR professionals, but don't get tied to one industry or one career path, because things are going to change, they're going to evolve, and you need to evolve with them. But just trying to always anticipate what the next step is, the next great idea, what the next step is going to be. I just talked a guy who's a neighbor to me, and he's probably in his early 60s. We were out walking dogs, and he was talking about how he was in the financial industry for years in the United States, but he wound up being going more into the total rewards, at least developing or accessing benefits plans for his industry. And that's a little different here in the United States than the UK, because medicine is more private, by private firms. Not We don't have the NHS. But anyway, so he moved over to a small software startup because he had the benefits, and I think it's a semi-retirement thing for him, like my position is. He says, but he's using his knowledge and benefits to try to secure good benefits packages for a small software company that really needs the bright young, not young, but bright engineers and things. And he's competing against giants like Intel, Microsoft for the same people. And how can he get a benefits plan working that they have a lot more resources that they can do? So I mean, it's the idea is he's using that knowledge he developed over the years into, to him, a totally new industry. And he's in his 60s, and he's helping the startup software firm, where you always think it's just kids out of college, or kids who dropped out of college like Bill Gates. But here's someone who's been in the business world for a long time, helping that out. So that's some of the flexibility. Use your knowledge, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to change. I mentioned my friend who teaches at North Carolina State, who's on our council. She was in private business for years, corporate business, makes the switch to academics, and she's just enjoying life, and is really a really outstanding professor. She's a professor of practice, and really we're going to be running a paper from one of our MBA students, and it's unbelievable, the quality. So I mean, you need to be flexible, and a broad base of knowledge. I think the and again, it's a generalization. I think younger people coming into the workforce are much more attuned to that than we were coming into the workforce, where you think you see one avenue, and I see this is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to take the linear approach, and this is where I want to be when I'm 65. And it doesn't work out like that way now as much as it did in the past.
Very powerful counsel, great words of wisdom. I take away from that the whole notion of remaining curious, be flexible, innovate, And to extend the metaphor that if people want a seat at the table, then you've got to be prepared to bring the table stakes with you.
That's right. That's a good way to. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, you got to be able to be in that game. That's right. But yeah, because I think sometimes, I mean, oh, I want to sit at the table, and you wonder, then what the ace am I doing here anyway? Yeah. So I think yeah, that's a lot of you. You have to have that background for sure.
Um, Before we close, I always try to ask everyone in these rewarding conversations, is there anything that I haven't asked you to chat about that
Uh,
you think I might have done?
oh no, I think it's been a great conversation, Stephen. That's always as a journalist by training, that's the good interviewers. That question is always that's the great question because sometimes yeah you bring up new things, but I really appreciate our conversation today. It was great, but I think with the world of total rewards, it's the future is very interesting and it's in a state of evolution and it's going to be a lot. I think in the United States, and I think it might be different. Any, over the years, anything I've seen in terms of total rewards had to be to make it be successful. You had to prove it helped the business's bottom line, and I think which is good. I remember 30 years ago, I was a member of the initial diversity committee, and for the large newspaper or organization I was working for. And that's the first thing we had to prove is, well, everyone thought diversity is a great idea to bring in, but how's it going to help the bottom line? And I think that's one thing, no matter what you do, and you're going to be very well meaning in things, you have to emphasize as a TR professional how, we use the term attracting uh, and recruiting, hiring, attracting, and motivating the best employees. How that how that affects the business bottom line. How, for example, if you want, how can you help your business by investing in an on-site childcare facility? It's not just for the convenience of your workers. What kind of workers are you going to attract? That you have to always emphasize the business bottom line.
Thank you very much, Jim. I really appreciate you kindly spending time and sharing your wisdom with us. What can I
Okay,
say?
I really enjoyed it, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.